Joining us now is Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia's 10th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome to the program. You have an announcement that you want to talk about and talking about Lake and Riley. Walk us through it.
Well, and I appreciate you having me on, Charlie, because this is a very good, solid piece of legislation. This is policy. And, while this Lake and Riley Act is not going to solve immigration, what it's going to be able to do, though, is it's going to give a tool to local law enforcement to where they can contact ICE and get these people down here and get them detained and deport these illegal criminals that have been invading our countries and it just wreaking havoc all across the country. And in this case, this particular case, this Ibarra was picked up a few days earlier in Athens, Georgia for shoplifting and cited. But if we'd have had the Lake and Riley Act into effect as law, they would have been able to call ICE immediately and get him detained and deported. And, Charlie, I heard on your segment before that you were talking about abiding by laws and which laws they were picking and choosing. And I think this is such a perfect example of people picking and choosing laws that they want to abide by, because that mayor and that sheriff up there were treating Athens, Georgia as a sanctuary city, and sanctuary cities are illegal in Georgia. And until we realize that we are a nation of laws and this country cannot stand unless we abide by those laws and we prosecute these people who are not abiding by them, well, you're right, we're losing this country.
So if Athens was operating illegally as a sanctuary city, can't the Attorney General, Chris Carr, go and indict them or impanel a grand jury to try to arrest the mayor or the people that were doing this illegally?
Charlie, I hope that the state of Georgia is turning over every rock and using every tool that they have in order to get rid of that mayor. Because, I've been calling on him to resign since day one. If he had an ounce of honor, he would have already resigned. But these people think they're above the law. They think that they are emboldened by what they have been seeing from this the Biden administration, as a matter of fact, and just allowing people to stream across the border. Even this guy picked up, paroled, and Mayorkas and them just let him go out there, free to take his criminal enterprise all across the country. He started out in New York City, but until we start, and we've got a panel that's in place in Georgia to take a look at these DAs that are not prosecuting these people. But this is all across the country, even just like you said in Arizona. If we're not going to take up and abide by the laws of this country, we're going to lose it.
And so Mike, that's right. And I'm afraid we are losing it currently. I wanted to zero in on this Lake and Riley story. What about this particular story do you think why it went so viral and resonated so deeply? And I say this because I don't want to forget the other victims of illegals that have been killed, whether in DUIs or murders. It's happening daily. But this story, I think it was because this was a young lady with such promise, with such hope, that was following yeah, please, I'd love your thoughts.
Well, you're right there. And I think it's two reasons. Number one is people like you and media across this country that are helping us keep this on the front page and keep it front and center. But Charlie, we all can relate to this family's grieving, because I've got a 26-year-old daughter. You either have kids that are growing up, you've got nieces and nephews, people that grew up and they go off to college, and you worry about them. You worry about them from the day they're born, but you think you're sending them off to a safe location, somewhere that they can chase their dream. And you're right, this young lady wanted to be a nurse, to serve the community out there and help. And her life was just brutally taken from her. And there's no reason for it. This guy shouldn't never have been in the country, period. But he was. And it is due to the failures of this administration, and people across the country can relate to it. And that's why I'm encouraging everybody. We've been over in the Senate. We've got 46 of 49 Republicans already signed onto this thing. This bill went through the House in less than a week and picked up 37 Democrats. So it came out of the House bipartisan. We're over there now. We're talking to Democrats. I need folks to be calling their U.S. senators, Republican or Democrat, doesn't matter. Call them and tell them to sign on.
Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, where are they on this, Congressman?
Well, we've talked to both of them. Warnock had some questions about how much this was going to put on ice. And Charlie, you know, like I do, if we can stop these people at these lesser crimes, and all we did with this bill was add burglary and theft to the list of criminal activity that the local law enforcement can call ICE and get them in there and detain them. If we can stop them at these lesser crimes, it's not going to escalate to things like murder. This guy would have been gone. So the workload on ICE is already there. They want to do their job. And you start arresting these people for lesser crimes and then shipping them out of here, that in itself is a deterrence. But and of course, Ossoff, he's still looking at it. I think he wanted to start over with his own bill, and I understand those reasons. But this is a good, solid piece of legislation. This is not politics.
Well, no, I agree. And John Ossoff, I mean, I'm going to say something political. He's in cycle in 2026, and
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I think John Ossoff knows that he's in a red state, and I want to talk to you about that. That is getting its act together, and there's these 2 Democrat senators that snuck in, and we're going to fix that error. I want to ask you, politically on the ground, the Laken Riley story, I think it was damaging to Joe Biden in Georgia. I think that he lost hundreds of thousands of potential voters over this story. Do you agree?
Oh, I agree 100%. You know, this just hits home. It's the University of Georgia. You know, that in itself is an institution that most of Georgia relates to. Either they went to the school, they know people that went to that school, and they know the trail that she was on. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I used to jog on that trail, and not anymore. So it's really resonated in our state.
So let's talk then about Georgia coming into November. Joe Biden got the electoral votes from Georgia back in 2020. He received them. I like Donald Trump's chances in Georgia. Where do you think his chances are politically on the ground? It seems as if voter registration is going well. Give us an update on how we're looking Trump v. Biden v. RFK this November in Georgia.
Well, I'll tell you, Charlie, I started out with President Trump back in Iowa, froze my tail off out there. And then I went with him to New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Georgia. And I'm not just talking to talk, but I saw the groundswell. And from the time that we left South Carolina to the time we went to Rome, Georgia, I got to that facility at around 1:30 for a 5:30 event. You couldn't pack another person in that place. So the energy is through the roof. As a matter of fact, I was behind Trump solidly, maxed out to the guy every time, but I was behind him way back before he was ever the nominee for 2016. So I've been with him the whole time. And to see the energy on the ground in the state of Georgia and how it has built, he's going to win the state of Georgia. We've done some things. We still need to do some things in Georgia. I would love to get rid of those machines. Man, it'd make my day if we just called Florida and asked them where they ordered their ballots from and get us some. But until then, we need the RNC, and I'm so glad that Laura Trump is co-chairing that because they're going to hire enough people to get out there. We've got other organizations, you know them like I do, and we're going to be stomping. We're going to be hitting the ground. We're going to be registering people. We're going to make sure that people understand that we have election season and not election day, and get out there and vote early.
Well, and to reiterate that, Georgia, I think there was a little bit of a taking it for granted in 2020. It wasn't worked as deep as it should have been. I think you would agree. There was kind of, oh, Trump's going to win. Purdue will go to a runoff. Leffler will go to a runoff. And all of a sudden, we kind of were sabotaged, right? We didn't, and we're not going to let that happen again. So the 30 seconds, tell our audience about how they can contact and support. So the call to action is get your senators to support the Laken Riley bill. Is that correct?
That's correct. Whether the Republican or Democrat, the senators are a much closer group, smaller group. Contact your U.S. senator. Tell them we understand this is not going to fix immigration 100%. We'll do that come November unless Biden puts in those executive orders. But call them and tell them this is good, solid policy.
Love it.
Good legislation, and we need the help.
Mike Collins, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Are you guys ready to lose weight?